Chapter 21. Serafina didn't dare say she wanted to go shopping with him. Her thoughts were spinning in her head. She gritted her teeth and said, "Oh, I said last time, you still owe me a dance, does that still count?" The other end of the phone was silent again. 2 seconds later he asked, "Tonight?" She nodded quickly, realizing he couldn't see. She said again. For some reason, every time she finished speaking, it seemed like he had to react for a few seconds longer. He said, "Yeah, it still counts. If the representative of the Lancaster family could come, then it would be the biggest sedative." She breathed a sigh of relief, then, knowing the situation, she continued, "But, we have never danced together before, so we should practice once." "Oh, why does it sound so meaningful? So what you mean is, I'll go over there now?" She quickly and politely replied, "Of course, I have to consider your time, you can come anytime." After hearing her polite and deceitful answer, the corners of his lips curled up, but his voice was still cold, unable to detect any emotion. "It just so happens that I have nothing to do. I'll come over to your place later." "Thank you very much." She was very happy to hear that, as if she had just been relieved of a burden. His eyes flashed, and he hung up. She prepared herself a little bit and went downstairs. She walked outside, crossing a very wide road through the forest. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the sunlight was bright. Rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves, giving off a dreamy scent. Wherever there were trees, the air was always very fresh. She took a deep breath, her mood much more pleasant. Just tilting her head slightly, she could see on the green lawn, the staff of the party organization company were setting up the yard for tonight's outdoor party. Tonight, she wanted to show everyone that she was the real young lady of the Beaumont family. She would no longer think about Lily's matter, she would no longer let her affect her emotions. As for her mother's matter, she would let it be, and later on she would act on it, and then she would have the opportunity to expose Lily. Theodore, just need to gently coax him and it will be done. As for her, the most important thing now was to help the group win the Max Power project, and continue to fulfill the agreement with Mr. Lancaster. She crossed the dappled sunlight under the canopy of trees, standing under the canopy of the parasol tree at the main gate. Not long after, Harrison's car arrived. The car door opened, she was a little nervous. Unexpectedly, the first person to get out of the car was a man dressed in black with a cold face, like a bodyguard, but also like a gangster. The man in black opened the car door close to her. Harrison stepped out, slightly squinted his eyes, looked at the scene being arranged on the lawn, then looked towards her, and asked, "Tonight's party is set on the grass?" She nodded. "Then why did you run out here? Didn't you want to practice dancing?" She smiled shyly and said, "Actually, my dancing skills are quite good, I don't need to practice anymore. But my evening gown isn't ready yet, and I can't find anyone to go shopping with, so." He listened calmly, his handsome face still as calm as ever. But the man in black beside him immediately shivered. Our boss wasn't the one for her called to go shopping with. She felt this man's sharp gaze, immediately feeling that something was wrong, quickly pursed her lips, and looked up at him guiltily. He stood under the midday sun, his handsome face illuminated by the sun was clear and unusually radiant. Perhaps because of the light, at first glance he no longer looked cold, but instead exuded a lazy and comfortable look. His thin lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. She looked at him without understanding what his faint smile meant. Not knowing if he was smiling at her because his eyes were open to her cunning schemes, or if he was angry because he was deceived by her. If she didn't understand, she resolutely acted indifferent, curled her lips, and smiled back. His pupils contracted slightly, looking at her smiling face without any shame. About 3 seconds later, he turned around, and even opened the car door for her strangely, "Then get in the car." She was momentarily stunned, and immediately obediently listened. Only after getting in the car did she discover that there were several other cold-faced men in the car who were looking at her gloomily. Along the way, he didn't say anything, that was his personality. As for her, she thought that his value was to go shopping for clothes with her, and dance with her in the evening, after which she could fulfill her virtue and send this living Buddha away. Because of this thought, she didn't need to deliberately flatter him, so she didn't say anything. The cold-faced man didn't say anything. The 10-minute drive passed in silence. The car stopped at the parking lot of Beijing's most bustling high-end commercial district. When getting off the car, the man in black got off first and ran to the other side to open the car door for her. This was a man who looked rough like a big man on the outside, but was sensitive like a young girl on the inside. He guessed that his third brother would leave an important meeting to come here to buy clothes with this young lady. This was something unprecedented, and also extremely hard to imagine. Just by looking at her, one could tell how much this young lady was valued. But his third brother hangs out with men all day long, has never had a girlfriend, and doesn't know how to take care of women. Just now, he couldn't even say a word in the car. He really doesn't understand romance. He thought to himself delicately, the others were also cold-faced, they would scare this weak young lady, and in the end, they would implicate his third brother in a broken heart. He was determined to contribute his part to the great event of his third brother's life. Therefore, the rough brother smiled very gently at Serafina as he opened the car door for her. She immediately trembled. Smiling was even uglier than crying. The rough brother's tears flowed like a river. Although he had good intentions, he shouldn't scare this little girl. She still reacted very quickly, smiling back. Her smile was innocent and radiant, warming people's hearts. The rough brother was deeply hurt, silently huddled in a corner. Harrison asked her a question, "Do you like any brand?" She answered casually, "Valentino." The two of them then entered the Valentino store. Although the people who often come to this shopping area to shop are all rich and powerful young men, when Harrison entered the store, the eyes of the salesgirls were still glued to him. But when they saw the beauty beside him, their inviting smiles became a bit more discreet. Serafina pretended not to see, only secretly lamenting, handsome men are really easy to attract butterflies. Whoever marries him in the future will definitely be unlucky for 8 generations. While her thoughts were still drifting, his cold voice rang out behind her, "How about this?" She turned her head and saw him holding a white strapless, thin silk dress in his hand, designed with a tight waist. The silk fabric around the chest was pleated into thin lines, simple but elegant. The lower part is a long, graceful, and elegant skirt, the skirt flaps fluttering. When standing still, the skirt flaps look soft and fit, very flattering. But just lift the flaps slightly and there will be layers of silk slowly fluttering, like a spreading mist. He said, "The party is held at night. White is the most eye-catching color. Because outside, there will be wind." She understood. She could almost imagine the beautiful scene when the wind blew. The countless layers of thin silk on the skirt would create a wonderful dance. She was quite surprised that he considered so many things. She took the dress from his hands, said thank you, and went into the fitting room. What was even more clever was that the long skirt fit her very well, as if it was tailored to her exact measurements. She walked out. The sales staff opened their eyes wide in admiration. Even he raised his eyes. His deep gaze was dazed for a few seconds. She looked in the mirror. Her skin was originally fair, completely able to overshadow the white of this dress. No matter the style or details of the dress were all very perfect, simple and elegant, innocent without losing the charm. At first she looked like a good girl going to school, but now she looked like a sexy woman. She was very satisfied, happily smiled, "I'll take this one." He saw her suddenly smile so sweetly at him, somewhat unnaturally looking away, saying to the sales clerk, "Take this." She was about to turn around to change her clothes, but thought of something, and immediately told the sales clerk, "I paid for this outfit, don't accept his money." He pursed his lips very slightly, not at all embarrassed, and repeated, "Consider this dress as a birthday present, or do you want me to choose another gift for you?" She heard him say that, and didn't think too much, and said comfortably and naturally, "If that's the case, I'll happily accept it, thank you." His eyes looked at her deeply, feeling that her personality was very easygoing, not making others feel uncomfortable and heavy. He didn't say anything more, following the sales clerk to pay. "Serafina, why are you here too?" A surprised voice came from the store. She was stunned. "Vivian? Wasn't she walking around with Lily?" She looked over, right? Vivian and Lily, the two of them walked over hand in hand intimately. Behind them was Theodore. Theodore obviously didn't expect to see her here. He was both embarrassed and ashamed, standing to the side. But Lily didn't see him coming, and deliberately called out to him, "Theodore, what are you doing there? Come here quickly, Serafina is here." Theodore still refused to go in, wandering around in front of the store alone. Why did Lily call him? He didn't want Serafina to see him walking around town with another sister. To be honest, he was still angry with Serafina. He hated her for being like a guardian, relying on her own ideas that she thought were good for him and then blatantly interfering in his life, so he really wanted to find a way to tease her, to make her so angry that she stomped her feet. But walking around town with Lily, leaving her aside like this, he felt very miserable inside. It was only because Lily called early, he had promised this older sister. Moreover, he had always celebrated his birthday with Lily for so many years, it had become a habit. However, why did he feel so uncomfortable today?